Hello traders, this is the Option Addict from www.tradingaddicts.com here on a Saturday night to deliver you yet another weekly watch list. You're probably wondering the same thing I am. Well, what gives? It's Saturday night. Truth be told, I'm going to be on the road tomorrow, so I figured I'd deliver this a little bit early. Give you a chance to kick it around, look it over, see what you think of this week's ideas. Let's go ahead and start with the market analysis. It is true, you've heard right, the S&P has officially broken down and closed at a new low. So that support level we've been watching, well, it gave way in the Dow. Now it's giving way in the old S&P. And that bearish price objective we've been watching of 740 was printed on Friday and had been officially taken out. If we break this down into a shorter term chart, there's been a nice little steady flow of lower highs and lower lows that the market just really, even though it's tried, hasn't really been able to quite break out of. And this is really the pattern I want you to continue to keep an eye on. As long as prices stay within the flow here of this nice little channel, continue to trade with the direction of the market. However, as we continue to get down to these lower ends, let's say S&P hits 725 right in that region, you got to be worried about a potential rally. And I get the fact that everyone's talking now there's a rally coming sooner than later. It hasn't come, but the lower we go, the more likely it is to appear out of nowhere. So when you're taking new risk to the downside, when you're initiating new short positions, I'm going for slightly lower beta stocks, not the typical high flyers. I think it's better to play safe when you're initiating new positions to the downside. I'm going to mix it up here today. I'm going to throw a few dips, rips, breakouts, and breakdowns at you. Check them out. And before we go into price patterns, last week we went through the whole bullish percent tutorial. We talked about the groups that were deeply oversold, that really had not a whole lot of downside risk left in them. And those were groups like energy. We'll take a look at the old XLE, which I think is at a pretty good action point. Crude oil held up pretty well over the last week or so. And I still like some of the ideas in that group, which we'll get to here in just a moment. The other was financials. Took some positions in financials. They held up pretty good last week. And transports, which as of right now, the transportation stocks are the most oversold. Out of the last 14 trading days, you have one day where prices finished higher. It's pretty dang oversold. And so we talked about taking long positions in those groups last week, which turned out pretty well. But also we talked about taking short positions in the groups that had a whole lot of downside risk. And that was healthcare, which completely blew up. And then you've got utilities, which also played a little bit of catch-up. The XLU starting to take out and flirt with some of its lows. And then there's telecom, which really didn't do a damn thing last week. So for the most part, playing that sector rotation worked out pretty well. I think you got to continue to pay attention to that. And that's where we're getting a lot of the ideas that you'll find here this week. Let's look at some price patterns. I want to bring up that old cup and handle here that we talked about on Sohu. Nice little rounded bottom, nice little handle. Breakout retest, prices finished right at 49. So with the terrible day we saw Friday, prices holding up pretty good. And what I'm hoping is that So here turns out like Baidu did. Kind of a similar pattern here, breakout, pulled back, paused at that old level and started ripping higher. So I'm thinking Sohu's ready to do that this week. Next, check out this one, Ameristar Casinos. Very interesting pattern here given the economic backdrop. And stocks held up pretty well. And it was up pretty strong here on Friday, starting to test its highs. So keep an eye out on this one. If it breaks out, maybe it runs for a little bit. Also got a couple others here. We'll go next to Ball Corp. Nice little symmetrical triangle. Pretty wide range here on Friday in terms of the highs and the lows. Finished positive on the day. So I'm thinking that this might mean a continuation in the direction of this trend, which has been higher. And not to mention you can see prices are kind of near a support level here, which I like. Next is ticker symbol DNR, Denbury, and you can see prices coiling up here as well. Getting pretty close to a breakout, and you can see here on Friday it had prices held up. I think that might have been the trigger. That might have been the day. So I'm going to watch this really closely heading into this week. Also, we've got Panera, which I've taken a position in. Really good looking bearish pattern here. Nice little descending triangle, breakdown, prices rallied up, retested right around 45, and then they rolled over. So I like this as an entry point. It's not too late, especially with prices finishing a little bit higher on the day. To me, this looks pretty darn good. Also, MasterCard. Visa started to take out its highs, and I've been watching MasterCard just in this flag pattern here for quite a long period of time. But watch for a breakout this week. We already saw Visa start to take out its highs here on Friday. MasterCard will be the next to follow. This pattern here we've been watching in the agricultures, TRA, which is my second favorite agriculture stock next to old TNH. Nice little ascending triangle here, and prices are starting to break out. So I'd watch that. If that strength continues in the material sector, now that AGU put in the bid for CF, with a lot less supply in that space, you're probably going to see prices continue on a little bit higher. TRA is my favorite stock in that group. Next is CLB. One of the better looking energy plays out there, one of the only ones that has broken out and is trading out, with the exception of RIG. RIG is getting pretty close, which I own. But CLB here, I like the price action on Friday where it dipped down, retested its old highs right there here at 70, and finished higher on the day. If prices open up a little bit lower, I think you can jump into this with your risk managed right at about 70, set your stops kind of slightly beneath that. But this flag pattern here that prices broke out of suggests that stock prices may go a little bit higher from here. Next, if you like flags, you got to pay attention to the one here on AZO. I got to say I like the idea of car part stores as more of an investment theme longer term. And I like the price action here, which got earnings coming up. That might provide the pop that sends prices a little bit higher. Next is ticker symbol WW. Another little flag pattern here. Price has just been consolidating within this tight channel. Wait for them to print about 50 or so. And then you ought to see prices run to about, let's call it 54. Next, big old symmetrical triangle here in retail, and that's J. Crew, JCG, which saw some really strong price action for such a terrible day here on Friday. Keep an eye on this breakout. I've been following a lot of these retailers, and they've been holding up really well. And maybe they got a little bit more upside here, but I think the break point where it becomes interesting is when JCG can get above about 12, 12.5. Last but not least, in terms of price patterns, is old BMC software. Another nice little flag, which to me points that stock prices are going to see right around 32, 33 within the next few weeks. So that'll do it for me tonight, folks. Hopefully this list provides you some decent ideas as you head into Monday and the first trading session of March. And as always, we'll be providing daily watch lists for you and much more over at www.tradingaddicts.com. Hope to see you there. This has been The Option Addict. That's my watch list. Thanks for watching. Take care.
The point is, ladies and gentlemen, that greed, for lack of a better word, is good. Greed is right. Greed works.